How agents caught El Chapo. Inside the world's longest manhunt, in the remote folds of Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains, the air smells of pine, dust, and gun oil. It's 1957, and in the tiny village of La Tuna, a child named Joaquín Archivaldo Guzmán Loera is born into poverty so deep that survival itself feels like ambition. The villagers will one day know him by another name, El Chapo, the short one. But back then, he's just a boy working the fields, trying to escape a life that gives no one an easy chance. In La Tuna, dreams are measured in pesos and protection. Boys don't grow up wanting to be doctors or pilots. They want to be traffickers. To them, drug money isn't crime, it's freedom. By his teens, Joaquín is already cultivating marijuana and opium poppies, the family's only profitable crop. School doesn't last long, arithmetic can't feed a family. What education can't give him, the mountains do, a hard instinct for business and survival. He learns quickly that in the underworld, reliability is worth more than strength. When a shipment goes missing, young Guzmán doesn't ask questions. He acts. He becomes a problem solver for local smugglers, handling delays, betrayals, or anyone who threatens profit. Ruthless efficiency earns him respect. Soon, he's working for Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, the powerful head of the Guadalajara Cartel, the man who unites Mexico's drug trade under one roof. El Chapo watches and learns. Routes, payments, silence, and most importantly, loyalty. When Gallardo is arrested in 1989, the empire fractures. For Guzmán, that's opportunity. He forms a new alliance with other traffickers, the Sinaloa Cartel, and begins building a network that will stretch from Colombia to California. His genius lies not only in brutality, but in logistics. He turns cocaine smuggling into an industrial operation, moving tons at a time through tunnels, trains, and hidden compartments in commercial trucks. When U.S. border security tightens, he digs deeper, literally. His engineers carve out cross-border tunnels, a new kind of underground highway that changes cartel operations forever. But success brings blood and politics. In '93, the public first hears El Chapo's name, and it's tied to tragedy. At Guadalajara International Airport, chaos erupts. A convoy of gunmen opens fire, apparently targeting rivals. When the smoke clears, Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo, one of Mexico's most respected church leaders, lies dead. The official story says he was caught in crossfire. Forensics tell a darker tale, 14 close-range shots. Was it mistaken identity or a calculated execution? Investigators claim the shooters confused the Cardinal's white Mercury sedan with El Chapo's, but the church, and much of Mexico, never believed that version. Years later, the next archbishop would call it a crime of the state. To many, the killing symbolized how the lines between cartel power and government authority had already blurred. The event shakes Mexico's institutions and ignites a national manhunt. Within 2 weeks, authorities track El Chapo down in Guatemala. He's extradited, charged with trafficking, and sentenced to 20 years. In court, he denies killing the cardinal, insisting the real targets were his own enemies. The government, lacking proof, charges him only for drugs. Behind bars, he begins his next transformation, from fugitive to myth. Prison walls don't stop El Chapo's reach. Through lawyers and visitors, he sends coded instructions to his lieutenants. The Sinaloa Cartel continues to expand, quietly turning Mexico's western coast into the beating heart of the world's drug trade. The myth grows, a poor mountain boy who outwitted presidents and police alike. Yet inside his cell, he's already planning the declassified. Impossible. Escape. He's seen the flaws, mapped the routines, and knows the cost of failure. In his world, patience is power. Soon, the most guarded prison in Mexico will fail to hold him, and the legend of El Chapo will truly begin. When Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán disappears from prison in 2001, the Mexican government calls it impossible, but impossible is a word El Chapo never believed in. Officially, he escaped in a laundry cart, smuggled past guards, pushed down corridors, rolled through an unguarded gate, and driven to freedom in the trunk of a car. But even then, journalists and investigators doubted that story. The prison was equipped with sensors that could detect movement and body heat. Someone would have noticed. Many now believe it wasn't an escape at all, but a release, one purchased with bribes and silence. Whatever the truth, El Chapo was free, and Mexico would soon pay the price. Outside prison walls, the cartel landscape had shifted. Rival groups were splintering, their leaders dead or captured. The Arellano Felix brothers of the Tijuana cartel were losing control. The Gulf cartel's chief was behind bars. Into that power vacuum stepped El Chapo, more ruthless and strategic than ever. He saw weakness as an invitation. Within months, his Sinaloa Cartel pushed into rival territories, igniting a wave of violence that would stretch from the deserts of Sonora to the streets of Tijuana. Cities once known for tourism became battlefields. Convoys of armed men clashed in daylight. Former soldiers, many trained by the U.S. and now turned mercenaries, joined the fight. The casualties were staggering. Ordinary citizens caught in crossfire, police bribed or killed, journalists silenced by fear. Mexico's new president, Felipe Calderón, would later declare a full-scale war on the cartels. But by then, El Chapo had already turned the drug trade into a multinational enterprise. From remote mountain villages to ports on the Pacific, Sinaloa built a distribution network unlike anything before. Cocaine from Colombia, methamphetamine from hidden labs, heroin, and fentanyl all flowed north toward the United States. Smugglers hid shipments in trains, trucks, and specially designed tunnels running beneath the border. The profits were enormous, estimated in the billions. Forbes magazine even listed El Chapo among the world's wealthiest men, a sign of how deeply the drug economy had penetrated global finance. But money didn't buy peace, it bought attention. For U.S. and Mexican authorities, El Chapo became public enemy number one, a modern echo of Al Capone. His face appeared on wanted posters, his name in headlines. Yet every attempt to capture him failed. Raids on safe houses came up empty. He vanished minutes before police arrived, slipping through hidden doors, tunnels, and sewers. Each escape seemed to mock the system hunting him. Even while hiding, El Chapo cultivated an image that blurred fact and folklore. In poor communities across Sinaloa, locals told stories of a man who built schools, funded churches, and paid for medicine. To others, he was a symbol of corruption's reach, a man who could buy freedom again and again. Reality sat somewhere in between, a trafficker whose empire thrived because law and crime had grown indistinguishable. By the early 2010s, cartel violence had taken more than 160,000 lives nationwide. The war on drugs had turned into a war on itself, and El Chapo remained at its center. Each arrest of a rival made him stronger. Each crackdown pushed smaller gangs to join his network. The Sinaloa Cartel became not just a supplier, but a brand, efficient, organized, global. Back in the shadows of government offices, a few determined agents began to refocus the hunt. Among them was Andrew Hogan, a young American with the Drug Enforcement Administration. Hogan didn't want myths or rumors, he wanted results. And unlike many before him, he believed El Chapo could be caught. But to find the man who had outsmarted and most entire nations, he'd have to play the long game, track his communications, infiltrate his circle, and dismantle the legend piece by piece. The stage was set. The mountains of Sinaloa hid the most wanted man on earth, and somewhere in the bureaucratic maze of two governments, a small team of agents prepared to bring him down. By 2012, the hunt for Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán had become a political ghost story. Everyone talked about catching him, but no one truly tried. Mexico's cartels had merged with power itself. Money flowed up, information leaked in, and raids often ended before they began. To the world, El Chapo was an invisible billionaire, living in tunnels and safe houses, taunting two governments that couldn't find him. Then came Andrew Hogan, a driven DEA agent from Kansas who decided that was going to change. Hogan wasn't a legend yet. He was methodical, stubborn, and quietly obsessed with the idea that no one is untouchable. When he arrived in Mexico City, he expected to join a dedicated task force. Instead, he discovered there wasn't one. No team, no operation, no single agent whose job was to bring El Chapo to justice. The most powerful drug trafficker on earth was, effectively, unassigned. So Hogan started from scratch. he learned Spanish, built relationships with trusted Mexican Marines, and began digging into what others had ignored: El Chapo's digital footprint. Deep inside the cartel, a member of El Chapo's circle slipped. The DEA intercepted a BlackBerry PIN code, a critical link to the boss's phone network. Hogan's analysts traced the signal to Cabo San Lucas, a glittering resort town on Mexico's Pacific coast. Within hours, helicopters, Marines, and DEA agents converged on the location. But when they stormed the compound, the rooms were empty, the beds still warm. Somehow, El Chapo had slipped out the back moments before they arrived. It was his signature move, vanished just when the walls closed in. Weeks later, the signal reappeared, bouncing from city to city. Each time the agents moved, he was gone. One frustrated official would later say, the Mexicans couldn't catch him even if he were standing at a Starbucks across from their embassy. But Hogan didn't give up. He watched, waited, and studied patterns in the chaos. The cartel used hundreds of phones, switching numbers daily. Messages moved through couriers, nicknames, and code words. Yet every empire leaves a trail. After months of data mapping, Hogan saw it: small repetitions, familiar routes, a circle tightening around Culiacan, Sinaloa's capital, and El Chapo's home turf. In early 2014, one of El Chapo's drivers made a mistake. His phone stayed on longer than usual, long enough for Hogan to trace it to a cluster of safe houses. The agent assembled a joint strike force of Mexican Marines, helicopters, and armored trucks. They moved before dawn, surrounding the neighborhood. The target? A modest two-story house in Culiacan. When the team burst through the door, they found something bizarre. Inside the bathroom, a bathtub rested slightly off-center. Beneath it, a steel hatch leading to a narrow tunnel. The passage snaked beneath city streets, connecting to Culiacan's sewer system. By the time Hogan's men reached the end, El Chapo had already vanished underground. Still, the chase didn't end there. For 3 sleepless days, Hogan's team tracked heat signatures and phone pings, chasing rumors through the coastal towns. Finally, a tip led them to Mazatlan, a seaside resort. Hotel room 401, 4th floor. No tunnels this time, just a man, his wife, and his twin daughters. Before dawn, the Marines moved in. They climbed the stairwell silently, flashlights off. When the door burst open, El Chapo reached for an assault rifle, but froze when his wife screamed. Hogan watched through a camera feed as the world's most wanted man stepped out of a bathroom, hands raised, surrounded by soldiers. After the 10 years on the run, El Chapo was captured. The DEA called it the most significant arrest since Pablo Escobar. Hogan escorted his prisoner to Mexico City for processing, but even in that moment of